what you need to think about as a trainer, you need to think with a different mindset when it comes to business, are two things. Number one is people have different pockets for different items. So just because someone spends $100 a month with you doesn't mean they won't spend $200 a month to get supplements as well. Those are two different pockets for them to spend out of, so they don't see it as the same expense.
Hey, what's up, everybody? That was Ryan Obernesser, this episode's guest on the podcast. And just a quick disclaimer, this show is for information purposes only. We're trying to give you the best information in the fitness business out there so that you can be more successful at your fitness business. But I have no way of verifying the information or the numbers that any of my guests give you. So take it as you will. And I know things vary from market to market. What works in one market may not work in another market. So try it at your own risk. These are just fitness business owners who have been proven successful, have been in business for several years, and know what it takes to be successful in the business of fitness, which is more competitive now than it has ever been. So I hope you enjoy the information they give you, and I hope it proves useful and profitable for you. I hope that you give our sponsors some love. Go to our website, trainergym.net. Click on the link at the top that says exclusive offers from sponsors, and you will get discounts from those sponsors that you can only get on this show. They can only be found through this podcast. So check them out. Now on with Ryan Obernesser. This is a first for me. It's a two-part episode. The first part, we just get into systems and sales and what it takes to be successful and kind of his learning curve going from trainer to business owner. And the second episode, which is coming up soon in a couple of weeks, we talk about his fast cash activator system, which is a great way to bring anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 of extra revenue, a revenue bump of $15,000 to $10,000 every month into your business. Who wouldn't want that? We dig into the details, we get into the weeds. But for now, enjoy this episode with Ryan Obernesser as we talk about his start, systems, and sales systems, more importantly, and what works to bring people into your club. Thanks. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the live broadcast of Series in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And on today's show, I have a giant from upstate New York. He lives in Utica, New York, Ryan Obernesser. Did I get that right, Ryan Obernesser?
Yes,
Awesome.
you did.
My English teacher would be proud of me. And he owns OB Training and Sports Performance up in Utica, New York. And he also has his, I had him on, he reached out to me and I had him on because we were talking about your fast cash activator system. And it's basically just about creating multiple revenue streams in your business and how to run it. And I've been talking to him briefly before we went live here, and the guy has this shit down. So welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me, John. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I just talking to you just briefly in the first phone call and before we started recording, I think the listeners are definitely going to be able to take away some knowledge that's going to help them become a little bit more successful. But just a little bit about your business. So you've been a trainer for 10 years. You open up your business in 2014 as a backup plan that we'll get into. And you have about 300 adult members, all on EFT. And then you do sports performance. So you have right around 40 athletes in your sports performance program. But you also have a couple of other auxiliary programs that you run that bring in revenue streams that we'll get into. Is that about the gist of it?
Yeah. When it comes to the gym, we do a little bit of personal training, but for the most part, it's going to be just our adult, semi-private, and large group training, and then the athletes, like you said.
Okay, awesome. And then you have 8 employees?
Yep.
Okay. And how out of those employees, how many are trainers?
Let me think. 5.
5. Okay. And then what are the other 3 do? Admin, sales?
Yeah, office manager, sales manager, and then I get my fiance is technically, we're on the books, so we're technically an employee, but she runs everything with me as well.
Okay, gotcha. Well, congratulations. When's the wedding?
It's actually August 24th, so it's coming up.
Oh, good. Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So and the thing that I like about you is you've been in business now, what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
In OB training, and you're already able to pull yourself off the training floor. A lot of people don't do that until much later in the business, because we were talking, and you don't train very much at all. About how many hours a week do you spend training?
I'd say about 2 to 4 hours a week, depending on that week.
Okay. And then the rest is just admin and overseeing the day-to-days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Working on the big picture of the business, growing the business, the marketing, a little bit of sales, but pretty much leading the team and making sure that we're progressing forward.
Yeah. And I like to hear that, because I think that's where everybody, some people love being trainers. Every once in a while, when I jump on the floor, it gets my juices flowing, because I love training. I've been doing it so long, I can do it in my sleep. And I imagine most people that open a training business are the same way. But being a business owner requires you to kind of pull back and run the day to day so your business can be successful. So before we get into like the fast cash activator system and everything else, the thing that struck me with our conversations is how you have your systems down. You just talked about how you just hired a sales manager to hire sales to handle the sales process. And I was asking you some questions about the sales process, and you have a system down. You have an actual sales process and all of these things. So having only been in business for 5 years, you had to have some kind of mentorship, mastermind group, something along those lines. And we talked about that. So you want to fill the listeners in on that, the evolution of that between the time that like you were inspired to open your business to like after you opened it, who did you reach out to? How did they help you? All those kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, or like you said, I was personal training starting 10 years ago, and it was about 2012, 2013, I forget which year, when I went to the Perform Better Summit, and I saw Thomas Plummer speak, and he inspired me of the possibilities that there are in the fitness world. I just had no idea, because I was simply a trainer. I didn't know anything about business or, systems or anything like that. And he kind of opened my eyes to that. So I decided that I wanted to open a training facility. Shortly after that, we found out that the Vancouver Canucks AHL team was going to be coming to the community in Utica, New York. And luckily, I had some connections with people that were going to be helping out with that process. So I was able to get an interview with the Canucks because my other thing I liked is I love sports. I've always been an athlete, love training athletes. So I figured, what better way to mix the two and become a strength conditioning coach for an AHL team. So I went through the interview process. I was actually told that I had the position, and I put everything on the back burner when it came to the gym. And I didn't hear anything for a little while. And it turns out that the higher ups made a bigger decision, and they decided that they weren't going to go with me as the strength conditioning coach for the Utica Comets. So even though I was bummed out that happened, that pushed me to make that final decision and actually go and open my training facility. So I had stumbled upon a location that was perfect. Was able to find about 5 to 6 people that I knew to get a loan from. So I got a loan of $50,000 total from everybody to get myself started, to build everything out, equipment-wise and all that. And we opened our doors on May 3rd, 2014. And had no clue how to run a business.
That sounds familiar.
So I assumed, because I had a good clientele and personal training, that they would all follow me over. My fiance also had a clientele, so we expected they're going to follow her over. And unfortunately, it was probably about 40% that actually came with us. So we, opened our training facility. We had almost as many sessions as we do today, split between 2 people. So you can imagine how, spread thin we were. We had a lot of one-on-one large group classes. It's supposed to be a large group training session, but it was a one-on-one session. And I can remember a time where, so every day after we ran our morning sessions, we would go upstairs. We had an upstairs loft area, and there was a couch, and we would take a nap on the couch. And we were literally laying on the couch one day, and we said to each other, "What are we going to do?" We didn't know what to do. We didn't have any idea about how to market or how to, sell or how to present ourselves and bring people in. We were just, I guess, naive to think that people were just going to show up. So we didn't really know what to do. I started looking around online for, fitness advice and coaching and mentorship. And I happened to come across the guy locally. His name's Steve Krebs. He owned a facility in our area growing up. And I saw he was affiliated with TFW. So I started to look into Steve, and I saw he just put on a conference called Changing the Game. So I just shot him a message out of the blue and said, "Hey man, congratulations. I've always looked up to you. It's awesome you did that conference." And secretly, I was hoping that he would message me back and start asking me some questions or something. And sure enough, a few weeks later, he did, offered me to get coffee. And went to get coffee with him while he was in town, and we chatted a bit. And at the time, him and his business partner, Luca Hosevar, had what was called the Pack Fitness Business Mentorship Group. And he offered me the opportunity to do some coaching with him. And I can remember, almost shitting my pants because it was $1,500 a month. And at the time, I think I was making $0 a month. So I went, talked to my father-in-law or my future father-in-law about it a lot. And he's in the finance world, and they have coaches and mentorships and that. So, he talked about the value in those things. So I made the leap, put it on a credit card that, the money I didn't have. And essentially that was where it all started, where I learned all the systems. I think the first few questions he asked me were, what's your sales process? What's your onboarding process? I didn't know what those even meant. And that kind of opened my eyes that, holy shit, I need to learn this stuff. Like if I want to actually run a business here, I just can't write workout programs and I can't work out myself and look good. I need to actually figure out how to run this thing. So that's when I really started to dive deep into not only the coaching, but also researching and studying and learning everything I could about sales and marketing and direct marketing and, all of those different things that I think trainers don't necessarily realize are included in the business when you open it. Like you said, it's a lot more than just coming in, training, making some training sessions, having a great workout with your clients, and then hoping that they're going to go tell their friends. If you're doing that, it's not going to work. It's not going to work long term. So that really was my first eye-opening experience when it came to the systems, the sales processes that were going to be required. So I started to learn.
Yeah. And you're currently in a mastermind group, right?
Yeah. So I continued with that mastermind group for, I think, two to 3 years. And then this past January, I decided that I needed something more. I wanted to take it again to that next level. Mm-hmm. So I had sought out Bedros Koulian and Craig Ballantyne. They run the Empire Mastermind. I did a sit-in on one of their events back in January, and I knew as soon as I was in that room with, a bunch of 7-figure entrepreneurs who are just killing it in all different areas of business, that this is where I need to be to push myself to that next level. So I made the commitment right then and there to join Empire. And again, that's pushed me to that next level where, we'll be taking our business this year to 7 figures, which will be huge for us. And it also pushed me to start my own business coaching program to help fitness business owners, make that jump, like you said, from trainer to a business owner, or, teach them that you really can make a good living and bring home some good money for your family and actually have a nice life in this world.
Yeah. There's so many valuable lessons in there, because I hear that all the time in the fitness business, is that you're a great trainer. You have full confidence in your ability as a trainer, your skill set. You have a loyal following as far as clients go. And you think, okay, great. I have what I need. I'm going to start my own business because I can do it better than this guy that I'm working for, this person, woman, whatever that I'm working for. So you open it up. You think, okay, all I need is a place to train and I'm going to be good. I'm going to start printing money. And then you open it up. All of your clients don't come over. And then you're doing that grind where you're training from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. You're eating out of plastic containers, taking naps on the couch, in between clients. And life kind of sucks.
Yeah.
and you don't have any prospects, or can't even conceive of how to bring in new prospects of coming in. People aren't knocking on the door, banging the door down. So you realize, okay, I'm going to need a different skill set if I'm going to make a go of this. I'm going to have to become a business person and not necessarily just a good trainer. So, and I think it's so important to reach out to people, because I find, and it's slowly starting to change, but I find that the fitness business is so competitive, and people want to keep, everything close to their chest. I got this super secret lunge that I do with my clients that, I don't want anybody else to know, and all of this stuff. And then there's no sharing of knowledge, right? So then the whole industry can't grow and rise together. But that's changing with the coaching, with the mastermind groups that are popping up, things like this podcast, conferences, all of those things that create more of a collaborative environment to where you can grow. So I think it's really, really important to know what you do well and know what you don't do well. I know for me, I was a good trainer, but I wasn't a very good business person, like you said, with systems and things like that. And even just managing employees, like hiring. How do you hire an employee? Who do you hire? How do you hire them? How do you onboard them? All of those things. How do you manage them once you get on board, once they are on board? So all of those things. So let's dig into that, because you do some impressive numbers, and to be in business 5 years and you're talking about 7 figures, that's no small feat, my friend. So walk me through this. So the beginning is you and your fiance. Who was your first hire, and how did you start to develop your systems?
So our first hire was actually a guy I used to work out with. We brought him on to help with coaching. Super knowledgeable when it came to training, when it came to the human body. But the thing that we found out with working, I guess, one, like you said, I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to onboard correctly. I didn't know how to coach him up and teach him the other skills, because when you're in the service industry and you're working with people one-on-one or in a group, you need to have the personality. You need to be able to communicate. You need to make people have an experience. It's just as much of a show as it is an effective program or a great workout. And that was something that I think I failed at for him in teaching him that. So that was our first hire that unfortunately didn't work out. And looking back on it, it was really because of my lack of knowledge on how to bring him on appropriately and show him what he needed and give him what he needed to grow. From there, our next big hire was an office manager. And again, this was at a time where we couldn't afford it. My coach told me to do it. So I was like, all right, we're going to do it. So we brought someone on who was able to help with phone calls. That was a big one. I had my cell phone as the business number for the longest time. And, one of the first things he said was, get a phone line. Like, you can't survive having your cell phone as a business number. And it was a night, about 9:30 at night, where a mother called me to ask about her son's shoulder. And I was in bed, and I was like, I'm getting a phone tomorrow. Like, I can't keep taking phone calls like this, because, like you said, life sucks at that point. I compare it to you're in a dark tunnel and you're crawling down the tunnel, but you just can never see any glimpse of light. And that's what it feels like, that you're never going to see that light. For those listening, there is light at the end of the tunnel, I promise. It just sometimes takes a while to get down there. But that was really our first big hire, when we realized that we're going to need a team to do this, was our office manager. And she was able to take away some of the admin tasks that we were spending too much time on during the day, when it came to just keeping track of our clients as they came on, making sure paperwork was organized, that they're getting followed up with appropriately. Those are the things that I don't think you realize going into business. There are all the extras, getting into like payroll and taxes and workers' compensation. There's so many different things that I had no clue about. So having someone there to assist with that workload was big for us.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot. And for me, my experience, hiring somebody to do the front desk or just for admin work was a game changer, because it took so many things off of my plate. Simple example was, if I'm training on the floor and we're training on the floor and we're working with clients and somebody comes in and wants information, I don't have the time to sit and talk to them and walk them through or sign them up or plug them into my sales funnel or whatever it was. I don't have a sales funnel at the time. But, I would say, hey, I'm working with clients. We'd love to talk to you. Fill out this form and I'll follow up with you. And I can't tell you how many leads I lost because of that, versus like having somebody at the front desk to answer the phone and talk to people and plug them to your sales process. And I also found that was key in helping develop the process, because they could track all that data and manage it and choreograph it to where it made sense to me when we would sit down and meet and look at it. And so for a lot of people, that's the beginning of their systems or system development. Did you find that was true for you?
Yeah, that was when we really first started to implement, like you said, a sales process, tracking our leads, like worrying about an email list. Again, that was something we didn't think about when we first opened. Was data is extremely important, and you want to make sure that you're recording data at every step of a sales process or a follow-up process, so you know what's happening. So that was kind of our first eye-opening experience of like, wow, it's so much easier when you have someone else helping you. Because you're right, if you're training all day long, the last thing that I want to do at 9 o'clock at night when I get home is go through and follow up with all the emails of people who had questions, or reach out to all these leads. So that was a really big game changer for us.
Yeah. So, and then after you hired the admin, who was and started that whole system development, how did it go from there? Who was your next hire? How did your systems evolve from there?
So once we started to implement systems, I began to learn more about marketing and sales. So we started to do some Facebook advertising. We started to do some more email marketing. I started to get into some training, studying Russell Brunson and Dan Kennedy and learning about ClickFunnels and sales funnels and all these things. So now we're actually getting some traction with leads, and we realized that we need some help with coaching. I can't do all of that and coach all the time. And then my fiance was doing a lot of the fulfillment part on the other end of it, and she couldn't handle all that. So we started to hire our first coach part-time. And then we started to hired another coach part-time. And over, the course of about 6 months to a year, their hours continued to grow and grow and grow, which allowed us to step back a little bit more. And eventually, 5 years later, that's how we've gotten to this point where we don't coach anymore, is because every step along the way, we've been able to take an incremental step backwards, meaning outside of the training floor and working more on the business side of things, which has been huge for us in our growth. Thomas Plummer will tell you this: you can't grow if you're not working on the business. If you're always working in the business. So, that was a big move for us, was to start bringing on our first coaches and actually investing in them. I think that was when my mindset shifted from, I'm just going to hire someone who knows how to train and let them train. We started to look more for personality and work ethic and, character, some of the other things. I figured out we can teach anyone how to train. We can teach anyone anatomy, physiology, how to coach a push-up, how to coach a squat, a lunge, but it's really hard to teach someone how to be a good person, or, how to be energetic and communicate with people and have empathy and, all of those, I think, skill sets that you need to have as a really great coach. It goes beyond just the knowledge of the exercise or program. So that was when we started to invest more of our time in building the team. And I would say understanding the value of a team and actually growing it versus just having a bunch of trainers. And I think that's been one big difference for us in the way that we run our business model, is we do not have subcontractors. That's something I never wanted to go into. I always wanted someone to be a part of a team where because we do so much stuff on the back end with systems and follow-up and team communication, that there's no way we would be able to execute it if we had someone working for us who also trained somewhere else, or if they were a full-time teacher and they only coached a few hours a week. So we bring people in through an internship program and then allow that to grow. And then eventually, so currently we do have 2 full-time salary coaches with commission-based pay as well.
Okay.
But we want everyone full-time, attention, you get full-time loyalty.
Yeah. There's a couple of key points in what you just said. One is that hiring for personality, because you can train, if you have a decent onboarding system, or like you said, investing in them, you can teach them anything. Because right now you're sitting in the club or the office of your club, I'm sitting in the office of mine, but mine has this window that I can look out of. And so when I was hiring the front desk person, I would have them come in and I would have them sit down and I would just watch them to see how they would interact with people coming in and out. If they said hi, if they had a bright, cheery personality, because you can't really coach that, right? Either they have that or they don't. So I was looking for somebody who would say hi, greet everybody, very friendly, outgoing personality, and then I would hire them and train them according to the system. And it sounds like you did the same thing. And I think that's so key. But the key to that is having that onboarding system and continual investment in them. And then the second thing that the other part that you hit on that I think is really important. And shoot, I just lost it, but it'll come back to me. But there was a really good point that you made. But getting back to your when you say investing in your team, because I think that is so important. I know what it was, that you wanted employees because you wanted everybody on the same page. I think that it's so key, because I think a lot of trainers, when they open a business, they think, I don't want to deal with the headache of payroll and training people, so I'm just going to hire independent contractors and then they can just pay me rent and it's just easy money and I can run my business, do my thing, and they can do their thing. But what happens is you get into this competitive environment, and then it's almost like putting a ceiling on everybody's growth, because everybody's fighting for like basically the same clients, and then you get stuck there. But if you have employees, then it's easy to get everybody on the same team, say, hey, here's your role in the team, and build that team, and then everybody can grow together. Like you said, they went from part-time to now they're full-time salary with commission base. I don't know that would have happened had they been independent contractors under you. But since they were employees and everybody was rowing in the same direction and on the same team, everybody was able to benefit as a result of that. So walk us through your training your onboarding, and how you invest specifically in your team to grow your team.
Yeah, so we actually just evolved it, and going back to, I can't think of the name of the book now. It's called Who, and it's all about hiring and how you're hiring and the process in which you go through it. Because essentially, if you have a poor performing employee, you can trace everything back to that hiring decision. And a lot of times it's that when you hired someone, you didn't exactly know what you were looking for, or you didn't set the right expectations. You didn't have a timeline and goals for them to meet over the course of a certain period of time. So what we just revamped was actually our hiring process. So now we have a 2 to 3 phase process. Number one is going to be our screening interview. So we do a Zoom call, much like we're doing now, whether it's a video call. And essentially during that call, what we want to achieve is getting a overview of the individual's background, as well as testing out their personality. And there's a certain process. There's actually a series of questions that we go through, and they all have a special purpose. And with that, the biggest thing that we want to do is let them know that for everything we ask them, specifically about work history, if we go back and ask your supervisor, how would they rate you? Or so I should say, when we go back and ask your supervisor, how are they going to rate you? Are they going to agree with all of this? And as soon as you frame that conversation and interview from the beginning by letting them know that you definitely are going to go and check references and you're going to speak with the people that they used to work for, it will bring the truth out very, very quick. And for every question that you ask, to actually dive deep in it. So when someone gives a short answer on, tell me about, let's say, a stressful experience you had at your last job and how did you handle it? Well, if they just give you a 1 sentence or 2 sentence answer, just continue to ask, well, tell me more, or, what was the conclusion? You just continue to ask until we get down to those I would say like the real answer that some people might not want to say, and you'd be pretty surprised how honest people can get once you get them comfortable with asking those questions. So that was big for us because it allowed us to screen out a lot of candidates that we were allowing to meet with one-on-one that we should not have, that one-on-one years ago. From there, as soon as assuming the screening interview works out, then we go into a one-on-one interview, which depending on their work history can last anywhere from 45 minutes to 3 hours. And we're going to go through that same process, but now we're getting a detailed history of every single job that they held, the experiences that they had there. What did they like about their manager? What would they change about the job that they had? What is something that they did wrong or that they could have done better? And again, we always want to go into detail to really see how they open up. And what they're willing to talk about, how they would rate themselves, and if they think that their manager would agree. And what you'll find is when you have such a detailed process, especially because the training industry is a very low barrier to entry. Mm-hmm. So I would say 60% of the people that apply never even make it to the screening interview because they're just someone who likes to work out and think it'd be cool to coach someday. But they don't actually know what it entails. They've never done anything like that. They really have no idea what they're getting themselves into. They think that they're just going to go hang out in the gym. So when you start to go through this detailed work history, you'll find out really if someone is committed to becoming a good employee for you. And then once we make our decision, our onboarding process, now it's actually a 12-week internship program. Depending on someone's prior experience will determine our pay rates throughout that program. But if someone's coming to us with no experience, you're going to go 12 weeks without any pay. Okay. And, it's going to be not 40 hours a week, but you're going to work 10 to 20 hours a week for 12 weeks, shadowing, taking our sessions. There's a whole online training course we just built out. So we have 4 different modules where they go through and they learn our value systems. They learn all of our training protocols. They learn about communication, anatomy, physiology, coaching, cueing, everything that we would want them to know. So that way they also have a library to go back to and check in on if they ever need to go through some continuing education once we bring them on. But during that period, we want them to learn everything that we do. And I would say one of the things we learned that's a big help is we only expose them to what they need to know, at that certain time in the onboarding process, because I don't realize sometimes how much we do. Like I'm sure when you're inside of a training business, it's not just workouts. There's follow-up systems that even the coaches are using. There's communication platforms. Mm-hmm. There's check-ins that they're going to be doing. So when someone comes on, we want them to learn the basics. Once they've got that down, then we'll expose you to some more stuff. And once you've got that down, then we'll expose you to some programming, and then we'll expose you to the next thing. So we've learned to kind of slow it down,
compartmentalize it.
Yep, making sure that they're getting through each stage successfully before we open up the next stage for them. And like I said, depending on their experience, will determine the pay rates during that period. But we've learned to fire fast and hire slow, and take a long time, investing a lot of time as well in building them up, educating them, and essentially providing whatever resource they need.
Yeah, and that fire fast, hire slow is easier said than done. I know everybody that I've talked to, myself included, have held on to a bad employee for way too long. Yep. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, it is. And you know what I think it is? I think that being in the training industry and what we do, we genuinely like to help people. So even if someone might not be the best employee, it's like our nature to think that we can help them along. We can teach them, we can change them, and it is hard to overcome that and just realize you can't. You got to let them go.
Yeah,
because it's going to hurt you in the long run. And it's, like you said, it is easier said than done. But that's the best move for you when it comes to business.
Yeah,
to move fast.
And if you're building a team, you have a responsibility to the team to do that as well. So that's your hiring process and your onboarding process. Very thorough, very impressive. So take us through your sales process. What does that look like? because we talked about that a little bit before we started recording, and I wanted to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I'll give you a rundown of our most popular sales process, because it all depends on how a lead comes to us. Essentially, they're going to end up in the same spot, but for most of our marketing today, it's going to happen through social media. And we're going to have some sort of Facebook advertisement or Instagram advertisement that will lead someone to a landing page or a one-page website where you can only fill out a application form, essentially. Once they fill out that application form, they're going to be directed to a scheduling page where they can schedule their own appointment with us automatically. So we don't necessarily have to do anything just yet. And then everything that they do is tracked. So we use a system called Infusionsoft that tracks every movement once someone comes into our funnel. And then we also use Google Sheets to keep another record of all of our leads. So once someone makes that first application form, before they've ever scheduled anything, they're going to fill out their application form, and their information will populate for us automatically on a Google Sheet. So our sales manager then can begin the follow-up process. So if they have scheduled an appointment automatically, we're just going to follow up with them as soon as possible to confirm that appointment. You would be surprised, or maybe not, at how many people schedule and never show. So, I would say follow-up is where the money is found, because if you don't follow up, there's a high likelihood they're not coming in. And if they don't schedule on their own, then our objective is to get a hold of them, and again, via phone call, first thing, to get them to schedule. And if they don't answer, we're going to go to a text message. If they don't answer, we'll go to an email. Sometimes we'll even go to a Facebook message, and we will repeat that process twice a day, every day for 5 days, until someone answers and gets back to us.
Okay.
And I know that's hard to understand for some people, like, well, that's annoying. How could you do that? But the thing to remember is that when someone fills out an application form for you or they contact you, they're asking for help. So as the practitioner, as the trainer, the coach, it's your ethical duty to make sure that you help them. So if they're raising their hand and they're saying, hey, I need help, we got to do everything in our power to get a hold of them, because the hardest thing and the biggest obstacle for someone new is taking that first step and coming into the facility. Most people aren't fitness people. They're not workout nuts. So they're scared, they're nervous, they're not sure what to expect. They're probably embarrassed about where they currently are. So it's very hard for them to make that commitment to actually come in, which is why we have such a thorough follow-up process. So that way they know that we care, and they're going to feel comfortable coming to our facility for the first time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And the last guest on the show was Frank Nash, and he said almost exactly the same thing. It's like, they're coming to you looking for solutions. So why wouldn't you want to help them? Shame on you if you don't. So what are your KPIs when it comes to leads, trials, and conversions?
What are our percentages, or what do we track?
Yeah. What are your goals? What do you shoot for?
All right. So when we schedule someone for an appointment, so out of all the leads that we have come in, our goal is to get 70% of them to schedule and show up.
Okay.
So we get 70% of people to schedule. We again then want 70% of those who schedule to show up. Ever since we brought on our sales manager, and we have one person dedicated solely to that, I think our last 2 weeks, we had a 94% show rate. And again, it's all in the follow-up. She's on the phone all day, texting, calling, making sure people are coming in.
Nice. So just hiring somebody full-time to get on it ASAP.
Yep.
And follow up, like you said, for that 5-day cycle.
Yeah. When it comes to follow-up in sales, speed is king, and queen is quantity. So the number of phone calls you make will directly be proportionate to the number of sales you make. So the more that you call people, the more sales you're going to have, because they're actually going to show up. Okay. And the faster that you call them. So for us, our goal is less than 10 minutes. So once someone opts in for us, we want to get on the phone with them in less than 10 minutes.
Nice. That's impressive. So your goal is 70% of the leads you get to schedule an appointment. And once they come in the appointment, where does it go from there? What are your goals as far as like trials to conversions?
So our most popular program, we do run a 6-week challenge. It's called the Take Back Your Life program. And when we get someone in for a meeting, we want our closing percentage to be 70 to 75% on that meeting. We are generally higher than that. And then once someone comes into our program, so we generally take 20 people every single month into our program. At this point, once you get these processes down, just to show you how important this is. So we have our program, our next one starts July 15th. We've already been sold out for July 15th. So we sell out programs 4 to 5 weeks in advance. And that's because our systems are so in depth and they're so detailed and executed every single time to make sure that we're getting these follow-ups with people coming in. But
so when you say sold out, what's capacity?
So we generally accept 20 people a month.
Got it.
Into our 6-week program. If we have a demand, so like May was a huge demand when spring started. So we actually ran 2 programs in May. And we ended up totaling 54 people coming in.
So why do you cap it at 20? Why not make it bigger?
One, capacity of our facility and our parking lot, and just schedule with coaches. Our 5:30 a.m. sessions are sold out, or they're filled up, a week in advance. So we don't want to put too much burden on our current members. The ones who've been with us for a long time, we don't ever want them to feel like they're closed out of a class or session, or, that they're not getting the attention they deserve. So we needed to kind of put a limit on how many people we could take in. And then we also wanted to have a real scarcity and urgency. If we just kept taking everyone, then no one would believe us when we said that, 20 people, or, I guess it's not being greedy would be what we try to do is we want to provide a quality service. So
Gotcha.
For us, we know, we do push it higher than 20, just because it's really hard when someone sends us a detailed message about how badly they need help to say, no, sorry, we can't help you.
Right.
What we end up doing a lot of times is, if we do have a program that's full, is we'll have someone do one of our 14-day trials leading up to our next program. So that way they don't have to wait a whole month. They can get in earlier and get started right away.
Okay.
But once our program begins on that, our closing percentage is about 70% as well.
Nice. And quick question. So you have multiple challenges, right? That you run? You said you had a 6, or you have a 14-day, 6-week, 12-week. Is that right?
So our 14-day is pretty much a trial, and then our 6 and 12-week is a challenge style. So it's a lot more accountability involved.
Okay. So you have these challenges. Do you find that there are 2 distinct populations, people who are looking for a long-term solution and do the challenge and convert to membership and stay there? Or, and then there's also that crowd that just do the challenges. Do you find that to be true with yours?
Not as much. So I know, like the over the last 18 months, the whole 6-week challenge idea or concept or model has gotten huge, and a lot of people struggle to keep it going because of that problem. We've been running this 6-week challenge for 4 years now, and we frame it as a lifestyle. So our program is called the Take Back Your Life program. So we have framed it from the beginning as a long-term solution. So that way we're not necessarily attracting people who just want to be here for 6 weeks.
Okay.
That being said, we do find that population every once in a while who are never going to join for a long term. They're just going to do a challenge. We did also make a rule: you can only do 1 challenge a year.
Okay.
So that kind of alleviates it. Between our 6 and our 12-week program, it's definitely a different population.